Our protagonist today is this powerful woman, Han Hai Ryul. Born into a prestigious family, both her mother and father come from legal backgrounds. Currently, Han Hai Ryul is a prosecutor at the public prosecutor's office. Her husband, Na Jun-woo, is not only a law professor, but also a promising presidential candidate. During his campaign, the couple constantly puts on a display of affection, with their seemingly happy and harmonious home life documented by reporters and the media to create the facade of an ideal family. Na Jun-woo's career is peaking thanks to the influence of his wife's family. The next day, the couple attends a concert. Reporters crowd the entrance, eagerly questioning Han Hai Ryul about her pursuit of a case against a leading company. Despite facing disapproval and pressure from her superiors, she remains determined to see the case through. Her husband publicly supports her, speaking favorably about her in various interviews. Inside the concert hall, the couple encounters the chief prosecutor. He has long held a grudge against Han Hai Ryul and offers her thinly veiled praise. Na Jun-woo, standing beside her, immediately issues a warning to his wife. Uninterested in conversing with them, Han Hai Ryul moves to chat with her husband's students. They compliment her appearance, remarking on how beautiful she looks. Han Hai Ryul, not typically focused on fashion, reveals that her husband chooses all her clothes, a fact she states with pride. Then, one of the students comments that people attend Na Jun-woo's classes not for the content, but for the professor's charisma. The remark creates an awkward silence. Han Hai Ryul, however, doesn't get angry, instead laughing it off with a witty remark about considering her husband a public resource. From afar, the chief prosecutor continues to observe the couple. He believes that Han Hai Ryul, relying on her grandfather's influence, disregards everyone and dares to prosecute even a prominent company despite the chief prosecutor's orders to stop. Notably, her younger sister is married to a high-ranking employee at that very company. Yet Han Hai Ryul persists in her pursuit of justice, unconcerned about the family connection. The concert begins, the venue packed. At that moment, Na Jun-woo receives a phone call and promptly excuses himself to the restroom to meet someone. The caller turns out to be his student, Hong Nan-hee, his mistress. They've been having an affair for a while, unbeknownst to Han Hai Ryul. Hong Nan-hee is demanding, insisting that Na Jun-woo come to her place even though he's supposed to be with his wife. As they share an intimate moment, Han Hai Ryul heads towards the restroom. Luckily, another of Na Jun-woo's students appears, saving him from being caught. The following day, the Han family gathers for breakfast. Present is Han Hai Ryul's mother. Since her grandfather remarried a 40-year-old woman, the entire family must show her respect. Despite being a presidential candidate, Professor Na holds a low position in this household. An orphan by birth, everything he has now is thanks to his wife's family. Before anyone can even pick up their chopsticks, Han Hai Ryul's younger sister arrives, creating a scene upon learning that her older sister intends to sue her husband's family. Their grandfather, instead of objecting, supports Han Hai Ryul in following the law. Han Hai Ryul is a fiercely independent woman. If anyone dares to suggest to her face that she relies on her family's influence, she will put them in their place right there at the dining table. That night, while the family gathered together, Na Jun-woo snuck out to be with his mistress, Han Hai Ryul. Despite having achieved nearly every accolade imaginable, she remained deeply committed to her career. Recently tasked with a particularly challenging investigation, she brought her work home. Her mother, a university professor, often reviewed the documents and offered advice. Meanwhile, the police force was diligently searching for information regarding the Jusung Corporation, the very company Han Hai Ryul was investigating. This posed a problem for her husband's presidential campaign, as he currently held the highest approval rating. Due to the Jusung investigation, Han Hai Ryul was constantly bombarded by reporters every time she arrived at her office. They swarmed her, speculating that the investigation would negatively impact her brother-in-law's company, leading to suspicions of a strained relationship between her and her sister. Reporters aggressively questioned her, trying to corner her. Unfazed, she refused to offer explanations and instead calmly schooled them on professional journalistic practices, leaving the reporters speechless. Even the chief prosecutor couldn't stop her, resorting to begging her on his knees. The National Assembly and the Blue House even intervened, demanding she cease the investigation. Han Hai-ryol questioned why the Blue House would pressure her to stop an investigation conducted within the bounds of the law. She was convinced there was something to hide. Left with no other recourse, the chief prosecutor brought up the connection between their families. Han Hai-ryol's son and his daughter were dating, soon to become family, and he pleaded with her to comply. However, she remained steadfast in her pursuit of justice. While not publicly acknowledging it, she harbored presidential aspirations of her own, and preparations were already underway. Meanwhile, Na Jun-woo lectured his class, his mistress listening with a look of pride. Later, Hong Nan-hee texted the professor, proposing a meeting on Thursday. Jun-woo eagerly agreed to cancel his Thursday classes, much to Nan-hee's delight. At school, she was the top student in both academics and appearance. During a study group, she flaunted a gift of clothing from Professor Nan, much to the chagrin of his son who was also present. Later, Nan-hee showed off the new clothes to the professor, and their affair continued. Since becoming involved with Hong Nan-hee, Professor Na had become increasingly distracted and distant from his wife. Unaware of the affair, his wife excitedly showed him her new clothes, coincidentally identical to the ones he had gifted his mistress. This was sure to cause trouble soon. The following day, Han Hai-ryol visited her husband's law school to give a lecture. The reporters persisted in their pursuit, but she ignored them, confidently showcasing her new outfit. During the lecture, Hong Nan-hee recognized the outfit as the same one she had received, glaring at the prosecutor with resentment. As Han Hai-ryol spoke passionately, Nan-hee deliberately posed difficult questions, which the prosecutor answered with ease. After her attempts at provocation, Nan-hee, realizing she had overstepped, quickly switched to flattery. At the end of the lecture, she even told Han Hai-ryol's son how much she admired his mother. Although Han Hai-ryol's stepmother held a high position in the family, commanding respect and enjoying lavish spending courtesy of her doting husband, Han Hai-ryol's grandfather, she had no access to the family fortune. Whenever she went out, she was followed. Han Hai-ryol's father-in-law, the chairman of Jusung Corporation, paid him a visit. He warned him that if Han Hai-ryol truly ran for president, the entire game would change. He even used his daughter's potential threat to his own position as leverage against him. However, Han Hai-ryol's father remained silent. His only desire now was to retire and live peacefully. He then brought up the Christmas fund, explaining how its emergence had plunged many into crippling debt. Unable to afford the massive repayments, they'd chosen to end their lives. The chairman feigned ignorance about the fund, despite it operating under Jusung Corporation, generating profits for the company. Meanwhile, Nan-hee, Na Jun-woo's mistress, was furious after attending Han Hai-ryol's lecture. She stormed into Jun-woo's office, startling him so much that he quickly drew the curtains. She threw her clothes on the floor. Jun-woo, left with no other choice, apologized profusely. Nan-hee sobbed uncontrollably. Unbeknownst to them, a camera recorded the entire scene. The observer was Han Hai-ryol's mother. The police had discovered an unidentified body, possibly linked to the Christmas fund scandal. The situation was spiraling out of control, demanding a thorough investigation to uncover the mastermind. Unable to bear it any longer, Han Hai-ryol's mother called her son-in-law. Upon hearing his mother-in-law's voice, Na Jun-woo quickly pushed Nan-hee away. His mother-in-law fabricated a need for some documents as an excuse to visit his office. Professor Nan, unable to refuse, agreed. After hanging up, he hastily gathered the scattered clothes and persuaded Nan-hee to leave. Not only was she displeased, but she also demanded he book her a different hotel. She then dressed and tossed the jacket Jun-woo had given her into the trash. She left just as Jun-woo's mother-in-law arrived. Observing the mistress's haughty demeanor, she mentally sealed her son-in-law's fate. Upon entering, she noticed her son-in-law's disheveled appearance and Nan He's discarded jacket in the trash. Instead of confronting him immediately, Han Hai-ryul's mother asked him to come home with her. Jun-woo hastily declined, claiming he had work to do. Noticing his mother-in-law's knowing gaze, Jun-woo nervously gulped. Han Hai-ryul was currently devoting all her energy to investigating the Christmas fund. Its existence had driven many to debt and ultimately suicide. She was determined to expose the mastermind, even if it meant clashing with powerful figures. That day's news broadcast revealed information linking the Christmas fund directly to Jusung Corporation, implicating its affiliated banks in the investigation. Many who had trusted the investment fund now faced the prospect of losing their life savings. Upon seeing the news, the institute director confronted Han Hai-ryul, accusing her of leaking the information without authorization. Han Hai-ryul denied sharing any information, but the director remained unconvinced. After he left, Hai-ryul blamed her assistant, as the broadcast contained their valuable investigative findings. The assistant admitted to the leak, explaining they didn't want Han Hai-ryul accused of exploiting the investigation for publicity. Han Hai-ryul then looked at the news, pointed at the reporter, and remarked that she and her assistant were a good match. It was clear she had already figured out their relationship. The reporter, seeing her boyfriend working under a woman surrounded by so much danger, tries to persuade him to leave the prosecutor's office. This leaves Han Hai-ryul's assistant deep in thought. Later, Han Hai-ryul and her husband appear at a snack bar, putting on a display of model couple dom for the public. This earns them the admiration of those around them, not only improving their public image, but also dispelling rumors of marital discord. This news directly angers the mistress. Her roommate advises Nan He to give up on being the other woman, pointing out that she's messing with an extremely powerful woman. Despite repeated warnings, Nan He ignores the advice. She's an ambitious woman who refuses to be outdone by anyone. Meanwhile, Han Hai-ryul's mother-in-law is eating rice cakes in bed while watching the news when she accidentally spills some on the sheets. She calls for the housekeeper. Everyone treats the mother-in-law with respect except for the housekeeper, who rarely speaks to her. After the housekeeper leaves, the mother-in-law secretly calls someone, saying she can't stand living there any longer. The housekeeper overhears this conversation from outside the room. Han Hai-ryul's sister discovers Na Jun-woo's affair. She confronts him with an incriminating photo and blackmails him into stopping Han Hai-ryul's investigation into Jusung. Han Hai-ryul's father is enjoying himself at a hot spring with a beautiful woman when he receives an unexpected call from his daughter's ex-husband. He announces that he will be searching her prosecutor's office. This is, of course, orchestrated by the powerful figures behind the Christmas fund to stop Han Hai-ryul from investigating the mastermind. Han Hai-ryul then calls her father, suspecting him of having a secret fund or doing something wrong that gave their opponents a weakness to exploit, allowing them to obtain a search warrant. He starts to accuse her, but before he can finish, her grandfather arrives. He grabs his son-in-law by the hair, accusing him of provoking someone and causing the office raid. Han's father tries to explain, but her grandfather won't listen. Han Hai-ryul overhears the entire tirade. She then confronts her ex-husband, asking why he's targeting her family's company. He tells her directly that Jun-woo is behind it all. He gives her a stack of documents, but she dismisses them, stating that divorcing him was the right decision. He responds by slapping her across the face. Han Hai-ryul's father then seeks out the chief prosecutor. Jun-woo was once his student. Now, Jun-woo's rising through the ranks, which he can't accept. So, Han Hai-ryul's father is resorting to any means necessary, even betraying his family, to eliminate Jun-woo. The female lead son is starting to develop feelings for his father's mistress. He's been distant with his current girlfriend lately. Nan He uses her wiles to follow her senior to Han Hai-ryul's office. The next day, the police find a body below the building. the deceased happens to be wearing a hair clip identical to Nan Hee's. Han Hai-ryul's mother-in-law, on her way to play tennis, sees a commotion in the house as people search for something. It turns out that the female lead's daughter has lost her hair clip. After comforting the little girl, the mother-in-law leaves. On the last few steps, she sees the missing hair clip. Instead of returning it to her granddaughter, she pockets it and pretends nothing happened. In contrast to the mother-in-law, the housekeeper is very close to Han Hai-ryul's children. She often covers for the daughter's outings. Hai-ryul's daughter is also very fond of the housekeeper. In fact, Han Hai-ryul has already sensed something is off about Hong Nan Hee. Coupled with Nan Hee's constant confrontations, it's made Han Hai-ryul take notice. Afterward, she received a call from her mother. Currently, both of them are facing difficulties in the election campaign and completing the Jusung investigation. Despite her bad mood, Han Hai-ryul didn't let it affect her work. Right now, she needs to focus on the investigation and find evidence to obtain a search warrant for Jusung. Han Hai-ryul asked her assistant to forward information to the police so they could leak it to the media, adding more pressure. The female reporter, the assistant's girlfriend, received the information. She immediately forwarded it to the news program. Hong Nan Hee came to Hai-ryul's office to help her fix her computer. After finishing, Hai-ryul thanked Nan Hee before leaving. Then, Na Jun-woo appeared. The three members of this love triangle were together at the same time. Now, Nan Hee desperately wanted to stake her claim. She wore the hairpin that Ju-yu had specifically given her. While Nan Hee acted arrogantly, Jun-woo addressed Han Hai-ryul with affectionate words, demonstrating unparalleled care for his wife. Feelings of insecurity welled up inside the other woman. Compared to the prosecutor's composure, she was the one who felt flustered. Later, the female lead and her husband gave Nan Hee a ride home. She took this opportunity to act coquettishly with her husband, showcasing her feminine side, which embarrassed Na Jun-woo. Nan Hee, sitting beside them, didn't know what to do, her face etched with bitterness. To repay Nan Hee for fixing her computer, Han Hai-ryul prepared a table laden with expensive wine. Not to be outdone, Nan Hee ordered a bottle of premium champagne. While Na Jun-woo was fetching the car, Han Hai-ryul bluntly warned Hong Nan Hee not to touch her husband. After confronting the other woman, she left, abandoning the table full of alcohol. These bottles of wine were exorbitantly priced, and Nan Hee had to pay for all of them. This was just the first lesson. A lawyer, a shareholder of the Christmas fund, fearing that Han Hai-ryul would uncover his actions, knelt before the chairman, begging him for help. The chairman, unwilling to get into trouble, refused. Seeing this, the lawyer started to fight back. He claimed to have evidence of the chairman bribing others. Upon hearing this, the chairman's face immediately changed. He then devised a plan, asking the lawyer to be the scapegoat and cover everything up. Fearing the chairman would go back on his word, the lawyer recorded their conversation. When the police came looking for the lawyer, he had already fled. The lawyer's escape led the police to suspect an internal information leak. At the same time, Han Hai-ryul successfully obtained the search warrant. This matter involved the Blue House presidential office, so the number of reporters and police officers present reached massive proportions. Furthermore, Dolphin, the first high-profile figure arrested, was directly involved in the Christmas fund bribery case. He was repeatedly brought to the prosecutor's office. Many people came to him seeking information, but he remained silent. After seeing the news, the chief prosecutor was furious. To avoid being discovered, he told Han Hai-ryul's ex-husband that there would be no more bribery for the time being. Inaction was currently the best course of action. To boost his influence in the election, Jun-woo continued to hold discussions on public ethics. Each time, he began to doubt himself, as he was someone unqualified to speak about conscience and morality. While giving a speech, Jun-woo even imagined the audience glaring at him. Fortunately, he managed to regain control of his mind and finish his speech. Afterward, he returned to his car and took out his phone. Seeing a missed call from his mistress, Jun-woo arranged to meet her. Man-hee happily went to the rendezvous. She was surprised that he had asked to see her at night. Jun-woo drove Man-hee, saying nothing, just silently watching as the car gradually left the city. Arriving at a pitch-black location, Man-hee felt uneasy beside her companion, her anxiety gradually increasing. While she was engaged in her usual routine of being intimate with Jun-woo, he abruptly broke up with her. This enraged Man-hee. To keep up with Han Hye-ryul's investigation, Man-hee took the opportunity while fixing her computer to steal data using a USB drive. This could potentially allow her to hack and obtain all the files from Han Hye-ryul's computer. Hearing Jun-woo's breakup declaration, Man-hee went ballistic. She threw a tantrum and cried uncontrollably. After getting out of the car, she even threatened Jun-woo with self-harm. He repeatedly apologized and begged her to forgive him, but Man-hee remained adamant. Back at home, seeing Man-hee's state, her roommate advised her to stop before it was too late, but she refused to listen. The next day, the university held a debate competition. Man-hee told her friends that she wanted to participate. Han Hye-ryul's son was also interested in the competition and agreed to join her team. Later, a strange male student entered. He wanted to participate in the competition with Man-hee's group. Everyone seemed to dislike him, but Man-hee agreed, inviting him to join their team. Currently, their group only had 3 members. With the addition of this male student, they would have a complete team. Hye-ryul's son's girlfriend didn't want to invest any more time in the competition, so she refused to join. Now, seeing Man-hee act all kind and haughty, she found the girl incredibly fake. After leaving school, she asked her boyfriend why he was so interested in Man-hee. She had been pursuing Han Hye-ryul's son, Gang-beek, for many years. While she always tried to get close to him, he treated her like a younger sister. Before leaving, she told Gang-beek that if everything was because of Hong Man-hee, she would definitely not forgive him. It seemed that the other woman's objective had succeeded in sowing seeds of resentment among those around Han Hye-ryul. The female lead had a family meeting with her mother and grandfather. She didn't want to clash with her ex-husband, but rather wanted to bring him over to her side. To do that, she needed to control the person managing him, the chief prosecutor. His only weakness was his daughter, and this girl was very fond of her son, Gang-beek. Han Hye-ryul would target this weakness to carry out her plan. Meanwhile, Jun-woo had a meeting with his mother-in-law. She demanded that he reduce his teaching load next semester and improve the quality of his teaching. While Jun-woo was worried, Han Hye-ryul's sister sent him some threatening photos. If he didn't stop the female lead's investigation into John, she would release the pictures. He knew his wife was very focused on investigating Ju-sung's illegal activities, so stopping her was impossible. Afterward, Jun-woo received a call from his sister-in-law. She uttered many threats, pushing Jun-woo to his wits' end. Frightened, he called his wife. On the other side, just as Han Hye-ryul answered her husband's call, she was greeted by some special guests, the police. So, she put her husband's call on hold to deal with the investigators. They apologized for not being able to apprehend the lawyer responsible for transferring the Christmas funds money. He had escaped according to the chairman's arrangements. Han Hye-ryul said it was all right, as it was predictable. Their current objective had to be consistent, all for the sake of finding the source of the Christmas fund. Dolphin was taken in for questioning, but he was uncooperative. Then, Han Hye-ryul herself went in to talk to the criminal. She fearlessly cursed him out, startling even Dolphin. On one side, Jun-woo looked down from his office window and saw his mistress flirting with other men, including Gang-beek. Just as he sighed, his wife called, inviting him to dinner. Later, Jun-woo showed up at his wife's office to pick her up after work, making her colleagues envious. She had approved her assistant's date request, and he rushed home to spend time with his reporter girlfriend. He expressed to her his desire to leave the prosecutor's office. He came from a poor background and had struggled to get the job. He also had faith in his boss, so leaving would have to be postponed. Han Hai Ryul and her husband arrived at the restaurant. She reminisced about happy times, but Jun Woo remained sullen. She knew he was troubled by something at school and offered comforting words. In her eyes, he was always the best. Just as the atmosphere became pleasant, Gang Beek and Hong Nan Hee arrived, their timing less than ideal. Han Hai Ryul was surprised to see Nan Hee approaching. To cover her awkwardness, she suggested their son must have known his father liked the restaurant. Gang Beek announced that his team had made it to the preliminary round of a competition. Nan Hee seized the opportunity to act intimately with him and even tried to join Han Hai Ryul and her husband at their table. Seeing Nan Hee's closeness with her son, Prosecutor Han forced a smile. Nan Hee's focus on Gang Beek was disrupting her original plans. After dinner, back at his office, Jun Woo received a call from Nan Hee. She persisted despite knowing he wanted to end their affair. After the female lead used the USB drive Nan Hee gave her, all of Han Hai Ryul's investigative actions were being monitored. Back at the dinner with the law students, Hong Nan Hee flirted incessantly with Gang Beek. She even went so far as to talk to him while touching the professor's leg under the table. She also intentionally touched Prosecutor Han's leg, infuriating her. Later, she brought up the director's daughter, suggesting her son bring her home for dinner. She also discussed with her husband the idea of setting up their son with the director's daughter. Meanwhile, the dolphin in prison continued causing trouble, and Han Hai Ryul's brother-in-law had to intervene. Han Hai Ryul knew someone was deliberately obstructing her investigation and had access to inside information. She was determined to uncover their identity. The obstructionist turned out to be none other than her father, her sister, and her sister's husband. They were directly involved in the illegal activities of the Christmas Fund. The next day, the Han household prepared a grand feast to welcome the director's daughter. The stepmother, seeing the commotion, asked the housekeeper what was happening. Upon seeing the fish being brought in, she declared she didn't want to eat raw fish. The housekeeper explained that Prosecutor Han had specifically prepared the meal according to the future daughter-in-law's preferences. The stepmother scolded the housekeeper. Han Hai Ryul's grandfather, hearing the noise, came out. The stepmother immediately changed her demeanor, becoming sweet and gentle towards her husband. She claimed a stomachache, saying she couldn't eat raw fish. Upon hearing this, her grandfather scolded the servants. Her stepmother, upon hearing these words, was secretly delighted. After some fawning, she helped her husband leave the dining table. Han Hai Ryul, eager to meet her future daughter-in-law, carefully selected her clothes. Everyone, ready and waiting, lined up to greet the chief prosecutor's daughter. Unexpectedly, Gang Beek brought Hong Nan Hee home instead. Han Hai Ryul was completely unacceptable of this. She then called Nan Hee into the wine cellar. Despite Prosecutor Han's criticisms, Nan Hee grinned and acted arrogantly. Unable to restrain herself, Han Hai Ryul slapped her and delivered a harsh scolding, aimed at teaching the other woman a lesson for trying to enter her home. Nan Hee, left with no other choice, had to leave. Finally, Han Hai Ryul emerged and announced that Nan Hee had gone. Although she succeeded in driving the other woman out of her house, her actions angered her son. He accused her of being selfish. In his anger, Gang Beek declared his intention to marry Nan Hee. After all, it was his marriage. Gang Beek's grandmother stood up and advised him not to rush into a decision, but to think it through carefully. His father, sitting beside her, agreed with his mother-in-law. But this only fueled Gang Beek's anger. From an obedient son who always listened to his parents, Gang Beek began to rebel. The argument between family members escalated. Han Hai Ryul could only feel helpless. The chief prosecutor's daughter, wanting to keep Gang Beek, began collaborating with Han Hai Ryul's younger sister. Dolphin had escaped from the prosecutor's office detention room. To prevent him from revealing anything about the bribery, the chief prosecutor specially prepared a meal. For the past few days, Dolphin had been treated no differently from other prisoners, perhaps even more harshly. He had been confined to a solitary cell, facing only 4 walls. Now released and presented with food, he devoured it ravenously. The chief prosecutor and Han Hai Ryol's ex-husband proposed a collaboration with Dolphin, but he wasn't receptive. Dolphin's words offended the chief prosecutor's pride. Thanks to Han Hai Ryol's ex-husband, he calmed down. Then, Han Hai Ryol unexpectedly appeared at the office. Seeing Prosecutor Han, Dolphin relentlessly attacked him, warning her that if she dared to touch him again, he wouldn't let it go. Han Hai Ryol later received a secret phone call. The caller was none other than the girlfriend of her assistant, the reporter who had previously hounded her for questions. The two had been exchanging information for a while. Currently, Dolphin held information about everything, demonstrating his significant influence in the case. Furthermore, the reporter gave Prosecutor Han a file. She said this information would be crucial for her, as the Christmas Fund group was now directly targeting her. Meanwhile, after a long period of reflection and planning, Hong Nan-hee decided to accept Kang Beek's proposal. Han Hai Ryol's son, after being opposed by his mother for bringing Nan-hee home, went to find her. They confided in each other. Kang Beek shared everything with her, but Nan-hee kept secrets from him, which bothered him. Nan-hee played the victim, lamenting her family's disapproval. Kang Beek remained determined to marry her. Previously, Han Hai Ryol had attended a trial where Na Jun-woo was the judge. His charisma captivated her. Because Jun-woo couldn't catch a taxi, Hai Ryol seized the opportunity to give him a ride. At that time, Jun-woo had no idea who Hai Ryol was, despite her fame in the legal world. This only impressed Hai Ryol further. After they fell in love, Hai Ryol's family opposed the marriage, exactly the same way Hai Ryol is now opposing her son's relationship with Nan-hee. Hai Ryol's mother could clearly see that Jun-woo was an ambitious man, but she still defied everyone and everything to marry him and live with him. Later, Kang Beek returned home and told his mother that he wanted to marry Nan-hee. Hai Ryol, of course, didn't agree. She tried everything, from yelling and scolding to kneeling down and begging her son not to make a hasty decision, because Nan-hee wasn't as simple as he thought. But Kang Beek remained firm in his decision. The next day, the reporter announced to the entire audience a handwritten letter penned by Ka Hyo Whale himself from prison. His purpose was to reveal several identities, including domestic businessmen and politicians involved in the Christmas Fund. This letter was the very thing the reporter had given to Hai Ryol the night before. Once it's made public, all the powerful figures behind the fund would target one person, Han Hai Ryol. That evening, Prosecutor Han noticed that her son hadn't come home late at night, so she called to check on him. Unexpectedly, Hong Nan-hee answered the phone. Not only did she say she was with Kang Beek, but she also insisted that she wouldn't let Kang Beek come home. After saying that, she hung up. Han Hai Ryol was furious and ran out to the living room, telling her husband to call his mistress. Jun-woo was frightened and stuttered. Under his wife's urging, he had no choice but to call her. As soon as she answered, Nan-hee called Jun-woo honey. This made Jun-woo extremely worried. Not stopping there, Nan-hee also said a lot of challenging words, making Hai Ryol extremely angry. She snatched the phone and told her to send Kang Beek home immediately. After speaking for a while, Hai Ryol helplessly begged Nan-hee to let Kang Beek go. But this mistress didn't stop and even went further. She said that if Hai Ryol handed over her husband to her, she would let her son go. In reality, Kang Beek wasn't alone with her, but was discussing the law competition with the group. Afterward, he went to the convenience store and forgot to bring his phone. That's why Nan-hee had the opportunity to take his phone to answer Hai Ryol's call. Ka Hyo's revelation of the secret list in prison directly affected the prosecutor's office. The chief prosecutor was constantly surrounded by the media. 2 people in the institute were arrested for being named on the list, plus evidence was found that they went to bars, took bribes, and were surrounded by beautiful women. Both were immediately indicted. If this situation continues, the next person to be put on the chopping block will be him. Therefore, the chief prosecutor ordered Prosecutor Han's ex-husband to overthrow her. However, he seemed very cautious because his ex-wife was no ordinary person. When the benefits of the chief prosecutor's daughter were mentioned, he became even angrier. The 2 of them firmly believed that she would be married into the Han family. Unexpectedly, things have not gone smoothly. In the end, both had to overthrow Han Hai Ryol to protect themselves. Kahio, in prison, even though publicizing the list caused many members to be in trouble, still didn't forget to bite Hai Ryol and not let go. He announced to everyone that his health was not good due to the impact of the interrogation. Han Hai Ryol had previously interrogated Kahio for 10 hours straight, but only to make him sit there without saying anything to put pressure on him, because he refused to say anything. That was against the law. Therefore, she was criticized for violating human rights. At home, Prosecutor Han, her mother, and her grandfather were also very worried about her current situation. To protect her achievements and what her daughter had built, she begged her father to maintain the prosecutor's office. Only in this way could Prosecutor Han have enough support to fight the Christmas fund. They couldn't stand still any longer, especially Han Hai Ryol's ex-husband. He was a dangerous and greedy man. Therefore, some measures needed to be taken. Everyone was worried about her, including her assistant. But she already knew everything, as the reporter had previously warned her about the plot to frame her in the near future. After leaving the office, she was surrounded by reporters. Han Hai Ryol insisted that the claims of her mistreating victims were false. Furthermore, she declared that she would do everything in her power to expose those involved in the high-level bribery scandal. After that, she left the crowd. Jun Woo was waiting for her outside. An aura of victory radiated around her. After getting into the car, she even deliberately kissed her husband to garner support from the public. The shocking kiss from the night before quickly dominated the headlines. This meant that Han Hai Ryol had regained the upper hand. However, her relationship with her husband was no longer as sweet as before. After Jun Woo's affair was exposed, Han Hai Ryol was no longer affectionate with her husband. Today was the day of the law competition. The dean's daughter had secretly registered for this competition because she wanted to come in first place to prove that she wasn't useless, as well as to bring Gang Beek back to her side. Despite putting in a great deal of effort to prepare for the competition, she still didn't feel confident enough to compete against Nan He. Therefore, the dean's daughter secretly brought a phone into the competition area to easily communicate with the professor, exchanging questions via the electronic device. Unexpectedly, Nan He discovered this. If just one person cheated, the entire group would be disqualified. The dean's daughter didn't want the entire group to be eliminated along with her, so she asked Nan He not to expose her. She said that if she brought the phone to the manager, she wouldn't report it. That still wasn't enough. Nan He also mentioned Gang Beek in front of her, which angered the dean's daughter, and she threw the phone at her. The competition quickly began. The dean's daughter skillfully found loopholes in Nan He's arguments. However, Nan He was no slouch either. Even though this was just a mock competition, Nan He used all of her knowledge to compete against the opposing team. Nan He's team performed better, but the final decision of the judges still leaned toward the dean's daughter's team. At this point, Nan He deeply felt the power of money. After the competition, Nan He went to find the judge. He praised her outstanding abilities. Then, Nan He mentioned the case from 30 years ago. The defendant was Miss Kim. She was accused of killing her father. The judge that year was Han Hai Ryol's grandfather, while the judge now was the defense lawyer for the defendant that year. Because she was abused, Miss Kim killed her father. However, she was ultimately convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Today, Nan He used the judge's defense from that year in the competition. That case had always been a knot in the judge's mind. That night, Han Hai Ryol's mother sat in front of the screen, observing every action of her stepmother. She seemed to be a leisurely woman, just sitting back and enjoying the benefits. But in reality, this woman harbored a lot of hatred because she was the girl in the father's murder case years ago. To take revenge on the judge from that year, Han Hai Ryol's grandfather, she had plastic surgery and partnered with a mysterious person. On the other side, Dolphin reported the unsuccessful attempt to frame Han Hai Ryol to the Human Rights Commission. He cried and lamented his sense of injustice and requested a meeting to decide on the punishment for the female lead. Afterward, she was called into the dean's office. He constantly mocked her and even claimed that she would be punished for her rash behavior. The police investigation also stalled, leading to criticism of the investigators from their superiors. Subsequently, a police officer familiar with Han Hai Ryol reached out to the reporter, hoping she might share some information. However, the reporter stated that everything she had found had already been given to Han Hai Ryol. She firmly believed that the prosecutor, Han, would use the evidence thoroughly. Later, the reporter received a text message. Her expression immediately changed upon seeing its contents. She remarked that it was a stroke of good luck, suggesting that more secrets would be exposed. Han Hai Ryol's father was also taking action. By leveraging the information about his son-in-law's affair, he began investigating the woman named Hong Nan He. Simultaneously, Hong Nan He was risking everything to wage this battle. Today, she boldly went to the female lead's grandfather's company. It turns out that Nan He's father was a product developer. He had previously received an offer to collaborate with Jusung Company. The company offered favorable terms, leading Nan He to envision a better life. Unexpectedly, that company partnered with Han Hai Ryol's grandfather's law firm. They exploited a loophole in Nan He's father's technology. Because he had signed a contract but couldn't guarantee the quality, his technological achievements were blatantly stolen by the company. The entire scheme was orchestrated by Hai Ryol's father. He strongly supported his son-in-law and second daughter. The three of them were constantly engaged in unscrupulous activities. After repeated unsuccessful appeals, Nan He's father took his own life. From that moment on, Nan He was determined to seek revenge. Finally, the day arrived when she went to the Han Hai Ryol family's law firm. The female lead's younger sister recognized Nan He as the woman Gang Beek had brought home the other day. She immediately demanded to know the purpose of Nan He's visit. Nan He responded that neither her father nor her sister's husband were her type. This infuriated the younger sister, who chased after Nan He, demanding clarification. She was unaware of what secrets Nan He held about her father. It was all the secret documentation she had been quietly tracking and collecting. Nan He sent images to the reporter, hoping to partner with her to expose the Han family's scandal. Nan He's purpose for coming was to meet the female lead's father. Facing the old man's words, Nan He remained silent, pulling out some photos of his lavish lifestyle. If he didn't want this to be tomorrow's headline, he had to apologize to her father and the employees he had harmed at the time. Although the old man offered several deals to negotiate, Nan He refused to compromise. Afterward, she sent a text message to Jun Woo, requesting him to come to the office to talk. Otherwise, she would go to Jun Woo's house. Having no other choice, Jun Woo had to lie to his wife in order to go to the office. When Jun Woo arrived, Nan He was asleep. She was still acting recklessly. This time, Jun Woo lost control and grabbed her collar. Nan He had to bite his hand to get him to calm down. Afterward, she stormed over to a nearby planter. It turned out that a camera was hidden inside. By checking the Han Hai Ryol family's computer, she had learned that Jun Woo's mother-in-law had placed the camera there to monitor her son-in-law's every move. This infuriated him. Jun Woo lunged to grab Nan He's phone. As the two struggled, someone was watching from outside the door. Meanwhile, Hai Ryle's stepmother, taking advantage of her husband's absence, sneaked into his room to search it. The night before, she had overheard her husband talking about giving up his assets. So, today, she went to her husband's study to look for documents. Finally, she found them. She took out her phone to take pictures, unaware that her every move was being watched by someone else. Afterward, the stepmother happily left the study. Before she could open the door, she overheard a group of servants gossiping about her. 30 years ago, after entering the prison cell, she was so desperate that she wanted to end her life. Fortunately, a cellmate saved her. She not only provided ideological education, but also promised to help her take revenge. Just like that, the stepmother successfully married into the family and slipped into the female lead's grandfather's house. The next day, shocking news broke, causing an uproar in the media and a shift in the overall situation. Nan Hee was dead. Her body was found by the police on the shore of the lake. When the butler went to Jun Woo's room to deliver the newspaper, she inadvertently noticed a wound on his hand. Shortly after, everyone was startled by a scream. It turned out to be the little girl. She had found her favorite hair clip. The stepmother, upon hearing this, panicked. She rushed back to her room to check and saw that the clip she had hidden was still there. So, whose hair clip was the little princess wearing? As everyone was confused, the TV news reported Nan Hee's death. The police were investigating the scene when a reporter unexpectedly appeared. She had arranged to meet Nan Hee the previous night, but this morning she received the shocking news of her death. The reporter told the police about her appointment with Nan Hee. Last night, she waited a long time because the other party claimed to have evidence to incriminate Hai Ryle's father. But after waiting and waiting with no one showing up, she was about to leave when a loud noise caught her attention. Jun Woo got his hands on Nan Hee's phone and panicked, looking around as if he thought someone was watching him. When he clicked on a file in the phone, he found an investigation report. Remembering Nan Hee's words that she knew everything he was doing, Jun Woo became frightened. To bury the evidence of his affair with Nan Hee, he tried to destroy the phone's memory card. Then, unexpectedly, a student walked in, saying it was time for class. Jun Woo looked at his watch and realized he was late. Even though his girlfriend was gone, Gang Beek acted calmly, almost unnaturally so. Only his roommate felt sorry for Nan Hee. The male student stammered, glaring fiercely at Gang Beek. He thought Nan Hee's death must be related to him. Grandfather Han called Hai Ryle's parents for a meeting. In his heart, the father believed that his wife only cared about Hai Ryle. Those words led them to argue. The grandfather's purpose in calling them was to help Hai Ryle avoid punishment. If they couldn't do it, he would promote his granddaughter to director of the law firm. Hai Ryle's younger sister went to the prosecutor's office to see her. She not only mentioned that Nan Hee's death was related to Gang Beek, but also hinted at her sister's husband's affair. If she stopped investigating her husband's illegal activities, she would be willing to keep these secrets. Jun Woo remembered a time earlier, when he was walking with Nan Hee and received a call from the nursing home reporting that his mother had passed away. This made Jun Woo unable to control his emotions. Nan Hee wanted to comfort him, so she parked the car. With his mistress's consolation, his mood gradually stabilized. After that, he told Nan Hee about his and his mother's tragic life. She told him to return home and seek comfort from his wife, as she was the person he needed most at that moment. Those memories, everything was in the past. Afterward, Jun Woo stopped at the lake shore, threw all the documents into the water, and repeatedly apologized to Nan Hee. Even now, it is still unknown whether Jun Woo was the murderer who killed her. The next day, everyone at the Han family ate breakfast together. Hai Ryle's daughter, seeing how quiet the house was, mentioned Nan Hee's death. The little girl knew that the owner of the other limited edition hair clip was Nan Hee. She didn't understand why. Even though Nan Hee was so close to her family, no one in the house seemed to care about her death. The police were still actively searching for clues surrounding the death of the mistress. When they dove to the bottom of the lake, a strange scene unfolded. Jun-woo walked by and, seeing the scene, frantically ran back to his office to check for other hidden cameras. Following the emotional shock, Jun-woo underwent a drastic change. Once approachable, he no longer had the presence of mind to acknowledge greetings from students. During his lectures, a commotion erupted when a photo of Nan-hee sleeping with another man began circulating. This immediately sent Jun-woo into a panic. His younger sister, Ryul, upon seeing the image, immediately called her ex-brother-in-law. She suspected that the man in the photo was Gang-beek. Police on their end discovered numerous decaying animal carcasses submerged at the bottom of the lake. They suspected that the perpetrator had done this multiple times and that Nan-hee's death was also connected to him. Subsequently, they checked the security cameras around the lake only to find that they had all been malfunctioning during the time of the incident. Clearly, this was intentionally done by the perpetrator to conceal their crime. The lake was located within the law school's premises, so the police suspected that Ryul's mother, in her capacity as the president of the university, had been covering it up. They went to her office to take a statement. Ryul's mother demanded that the police follow procedure. If they wanted to search, they needed a warrant. The police found this very strange. Despite the unexpected death of a student on campus, the president remained remarkably calm, showing no haste to reach a conclusion. She offered little explanation and simply saw the police off with a few parting words. The female lead's father was currently in conflict with his close lawyer. Despite working together, they had no trust in each other whatsoever. Ryul's grandfather had demanded that his son-in-law resolve the matter of her punishment. Once this was resolved, those engaged in illegal activities like him would certainly find themselves in a precarious situation. Despite the loss of his girlfriend, Gang-beek's demeanor was strangely normal. This infuriated Nan-hee's roommate. She deliberately inquired about his girlfriend, but Gang-beek showed little concern. The director's daughter added that Nan-hee's death was probably the happiest thing for her. The director's daughter's words caused Nan-hee's roommate to lose control, and she lunged at her. It took a while for those around them to break up the fight. Gang-beek watched them without emotion and then left. A friend chased after Gang-beek. He suspected that the perpetrator was someone that Gang-beek and he had seen. But Gang-beek said there was someone even more suspicious, and that was himself, because he once hoped Nan-hee would die. The ex-husband came to see Nan-hee. He said his son had dated the female student who had just passed away. This worried him that it would affect Gang-beek's future. Gang-beek is the son of Ryul and her ex-husband. Upon seeing the circulating photo, she immediately returned home to find her son. She brought dinner to Gang-beek, but no one answered after repeated knocking. Concerned, Jun-woo found a hard object and broke down the door. At that moment, Gang-beek opened the door, said he was listening to music, and indifferently closed the door again. Ryul's mood hadn't stabilized from the recent shock. Comforted by her mother, Ryul decided to let her son take a break from school to pursue his dreams, rather than following the path of law. Her mother said her grandfather would certainly not agree. After all, Nan-hee was already dead, and Gang-beek had even less reason to stop studying. Everything she and her mother were going through was all for the sake of inheriting this empire. Otherwise, all their efforts to date would be meaningless. That night, Ryul unleashed all her anger on her husband. All her efforts had been undone by him. Jun-woo could only offer apologies. The following day, the forensics team performed an autopsy on Nan-hee's body. They discovered that she had suffered a severe head injury before being thrown into the lake. They surmised that the victim had been struck in the head with an iron pipe. However, it was some time after the assault that she was disposed of. The reason why the perpetrator deliberately prolonged the time is unknown. The police returned to the lake to continue their investigation. They suspected that the crime took place on school grounds. The students at the school began to gossip about Nan-hee's death. Everyone thought Gang-beek was involved. The Chancellor's daughter overheard this and lost control, wanting to defend the person she liked. At this moment, the male student stammered uncomfortably and shouted. He lost his emotional balance, which stopped the argument. Later, the police went to the school to take statements from Nan Hee's classmates. Among them, Gang Beek's friend proactively told the police who he suspected. That evening, Hai Ryol's ex-husband went to the Chancellor's house to propose a marriage between Gang Beek and his daughter. However, knowing Gang Beek was a suspect in Nan Hee's case, he no longer wanted to go through with the plan. Gang Beek's father threatened him by revealing that his daughter also had secrets. The daughter coincidentally came home and overheard everything. Hai Ryol's assistant discovered that the USB drive she used contained a hacking program, and this was the same USB drive that Nan Hee had given her. This made Hai Ryol suspect her husband was in cahoots with the Mistress, with the intention of throwing her son into this chaotic situation. Suspecting that her husband and the Mistress were colluding to harm her son, Hai Ryol went home to meet Jun-woo and immediately confronted him. Then, her mother appeared, and the three of them sat down to talk. She didn't want this to affect her daughter's development, so she demanded that she not sleep alone. After all, there were many eyes and ears in their family. At the same time, she warned Jun-woo that if her daughter was affected by this, she would do anything to make him disappear from the legal profession. The Chancellor was resting when he received unexpected news. His daughter's friend was suspected of smuggling. When the Chancellor met with that friend, he demanded that she take the blame, while his daughter knew nothing. After returning home, the Chancellor's daughter said it was a drug to help with concentration. In the US, students use them normally, but the ingredients in the drug are banned in Korea. In fact, Hai Ryol's ex-husband had known about this issue for a while, so that night he used it to threaten the Chancellor. On the day of the incident, Nan Hee had dressed carefully to meet Jun-woo. Before leaving, she gave her roommate a USB drive because there was a letter she couldn't personally send, so she asked her roommate to keep it safe. Now, she takes it out and plugs it into the computer to see what's inside. The lawyer of Hai Ryol's father went to prison to find Dolphin. He showed him intimate photos of Nan Hee and Jun-woo. However, Dolphin believed that these photos were not enough to take down Hai Ryol. The lawyer said he still had ways to gather more to prepare for the fight against Prosecutor Han. What he wanted from Dolphin was to find him a hitman. The two of them reached an agreement. That night, Hai Ryol was walking in the parking garage when someone was following her. It turned out to be the reporter. On the night Nan Hee was killed, she had seen Hai Ryol arrive at the university. Although dressed differently, with her familiar appearance, the reporter still recognized her as Hai Ryol. The female lead said she mistook her for someone else. Then, she asked why the reporter was interested in this case. The reporter talked about how Nan Hee had evidence of Prosecutor Han's father's crimes. That night, the two of them arranged to meet to exchange information, but the reporter waited all night and no one came. The next morning, she suddenly heard the news that Nan Hee had been killed. Therefore, the reporter suspected that Nan Hee's death was related to Hai Ryol's father. She didn't reveal anything, simply turned and left. The police visited the university again in search of clues. According to information from Gang Beek's friend, the stuttering male student was the prime suspect. While the group was taking pictures using this student's phone, they discovered hidden camera photos of Nan Hee on it. Not wanting to jeopardize the competition, Nan Hee's group decided not to report it. Currently, there's a great deal of public interest in Nan Hee's case. Some people gathering information online have shown up at the university. They surrounded Gang Beek and started live streaming without his permission. This person brought up Gang Beek's family background and accused him of murdering his girlfriend. Gang Beek couldn't take it anymore and physically confronted him. Fortunately, the police arrived just in time. This altercation further intensified the police's suspicion of him. Tensions are escalating. A large number of people are participating in protests, standing in front of the female lead's grandfather's law firm demanding justice. Her mother, upon hearing the news, immediately called her daughter, urging her not to complicate the situation rashly. Jun-woo was the one who picked up Gang Beek from the police station. Reporters swarmed around, but he ignored his father and left. This sparked public dissatisfaction. The reporter has been cooperating with the police to assist in the case investigation. While on school grounds, she accidentally bumped into someone. It was the stuttering male student. Unable to tolerate the noise of cats, he heartlessly killed numerous animals and disposed of them at the bottom of the lake. The bodies that the police found that day were all his doing. Just as the male student was about to attack the reporter, the police arrived in time to stop him and take him into custody. At the female lead's house, everyone gathered for dinner. While the family was discussing their next course of action, Gang Beek suddenly changed his expression. He yelled that he was the one who killed Nan-hee. He didn't want his family to resolve things for him. He wanted to go to jail. Ryol was shocked by her son's behavior. This reminded her of the night Nan-hee went missing. She had gone to the school to enter the office and happened to find the hairpin that she left behind. To dispel the police and public's suspicion of Gang Beek, his grandmother sought out the chairman. Because he held a high position in the security department, she agreed to withdraw $5 billion from her company in exchange for a call from him. If he agreed, the current situation would be completely reversed. Note, I kept billion rather than convert to Aussie. A new suspect has emerged. People are starting to speculate that Nan-hee wasn't killed by her boyfriend, but that the real culprit was the perverted male student. He felt that killing animals wasn't enough, so he killed a person. Of course, he denied it. Prior to this, the male student knew that one day he would be considered a suspect. He sought out Jun-woo and requested that he be his defense lawyer. It turns out that on the night Jun-woo and Nan-hee were arguing, he overheard the conversation. Furthermore, he recorded the entire thing. If Jun-woo didn't agree to help, he would hand the recording over to the police. After being arrested, the male student called Jun-woo, pleading for help. He was unsure whether to go or not. Ryol's mother saw Jun-woo standing anxiously in one place and called him into her office. She requested, in her capacity as a university professor, that Jun-woo should step forward to handle this case. A disciplinary committee would also be established soon to quickly bury the case. As Ryol's investigation delved deeper, she went to Ju-sung's office at night to catch them in the act of illegal activities. At this time, the members of the company were frantically destroying evidence related to bribery. By the time she arrived, they had successfully destroyed the evidence. She immediately proceeded to arrest the individuals. This made the dean extremely angry. He unleashed a barrage of scolding in front of Ryol's ex-husband. Meanwhile, he remained relatively calm. Even without a search warrant, if Ryol used the justification of catching Ju-sung in the act of destroying evidence, she would be completely within the law. The chief prosecutor didn't care about that. He was determined to make Ryol's ex-husband force her son into delinquency. Her father, back home, after hearing about what his daughter had done, immediately complained to his wife about her husband's overreaction to the situation. This made her suspect he was cooperating with Ju-sung. Upon hearing this, he immediately denied it. She said that in order for her to sit in the highest position, framing Ju-sung was essential. It was at this point that he realized his wife and daughter weren't just pushing Jun-woo into the presidency, but were secretly preparing a strategy for Ryol to take that role. After the news about Ju-sung was released, reporters gathered outside the prosecutor's office in large numbers. The female lead and her assistant proceeded to examine the documents found at the company, but their plan was too cautious. They checked everything multiple times but found nothing unusual. Later, Jun-woo came to the office to visit his wife. She wasn't enthusiastic about her husband's arrival. When Jun-woo offered her encouragement and advice, she wasn't pleased. She was irritable. Her husband decided to become a lawyer for the stuttering male student. Ryol went ballistic when she heard this. The whole thing made her so angry that she had chest pains. She threatened him with divorce. Despite facing pressure from both his mother-in-law and his wife, Jun-woo still decided to go to the police station to bail out the stuttering male student. He was then released. A large crowd surrounded him. The student couldn't stand the noise and criticism from the people around him. He could only yell that he was innocent. Then, he revealed that Jun-woo was his lawyer, causing the crowd to quickly search for him. However, Jun-woo fled from there in a hurry. Dolphin, in prison, was delighted to see the Han family scandal. Before, Ryol's father's lawyer had visited him with the intention of finding an assassin. After everything was over, the lawyer would help him get out of prison. It seemed like this was about to happen. Gang Beek's biological father went to Jun-woo's office with the intention of finding a way to dispel the police and public suspicions about his son. Despite constantly clashing with Ryol, he still cared very much about his son. Jun-woo truly loved Gang Beek. He had known the boy since he was very young. The first time they met, they had a pleasant conversation. At Gang Beek's high school graduation, he even shed tears of emotion. Conversely, Gang Beek also treated Jun-woo like a real father. Because the stuttering student was released on bail, Han Ryol attacked Jusung again. The chairman called her mother to refuse cooperation. He wouldn't accept the billions of won and wouldn't interfere in matters related to Gang Beek. That night, Ryol's younger sister came to see her. She revealed to Ryol that Gang Beek had bought a pair of rings. Seeing her silence, her sister continued to bring up Jun-woo to mock her. The next morning, Ryol's grandfather rushed into his son-in-law's room, suspecting him of murder, because he knew that his son-in-law had met Nan-hee on the day she died. Ryol's mother then argued with her husband. The arguments at home made Gang Beek very uncomfortable. The stuttering student, after returning to school, was surrounded by a crowd and live-streamed. He was constantly attacked, and although he was very angry, he couldn't do anything. The chief prosecutor's daughter, on the other hand, had someone in the group express their feelings for her. He said Gang Beek didn't deserve her. This immediately angered her. In her heart, no one had the right to speak ill of Gang Beek. The stepmother at home, seeing her grandson depressed, went to Gang Beek's friend, taking him out to relax. Since she came into the family, Gang Beek was the only one who didn't discriminate against her. The stepmother's words encouraged Gang Beek to leave his room. However, when bringing fruit into the garden, she accidentally witnessed a very shocking scene. Back to the night before, when her sister left, Ryol searched her son's room and saw the pair of rings her sister had mentioned. This reminded her of what her son and Nan-hee had said before, that they were truly in love. Indeed, Gang Beek and his close friend had a romantic relationship. On his first day at law school, Gang Beek was captivated by the profound legal knowledge of this guy. After getting to know each other and establishing a relationship, the two of them often showed affection in secret. Unfortunately, Nan-hee later stumbled upon this scene. Not only did she agree to keep it a secret, but she also wished them happiness. Given the current circumstances, Gang Beek didn't dare to think about this relationship anymore. Even though he had repeatedly suggested to his mother that she read books related to homosexual relationships to gauge her reaction, Han Ryol believed that homosexuals were weak. She even told her son not to let his great-grandfather see him reading this book. The homophobia around him made Gang Beek afraid to face himself. Unfortunately, his grandmother saw this scene through a security camera. This was the first time she knew the truth about her grandson. Her first emotion was immense disappointment. His step-grandmother brought food into the garden and happened to see the scene but remained relatively calm. She decided to keep it a secret. Gang Beek looked at the rings he had bought but didn't have the courage to give them to his boyfriend. His heart was filled with pain as he had to personally throw his love into the trash can. Meanwhile, the chief prosecutor approached Gang Beek's great-grandfather, proposing a marriage alliance between his daughter and Han Ryol's son. Hai Ryul's grandfather knew the other party was greedy. Not only did he agree to the marriage proposal, but he also offered generous conditions to bring the chief prosecutor to his side. The chief prosecutor's daughter faced two choices: alienation from Gang Beek on one hand, and the confession of love from another friend on the other. Her heart began to waver. That night, she went to find the other friend for drinks. At midnight, what was coming came, but after doing it, she regretted it. Just as she was about to leave, Gang Beek's boyfriend accidentally caught sight of this image. After Hai Ryul's grandfather returned home, his young wife poured out her heart about Gang Beek's friend's visit. Just when she thought things would get better, Gang Beek continued to lock himself in his room. The grandfather ignored that and took out the small notebook from his pocket, putting it in the safe. The young wife could tell at a glance that this notebook was not simple. Meanwhile, Hai Ryul's father's lawyer went to find her ex-husband. He said he had a way to help Gang Beek no longer be suspected. Hai Ryul's ex-husband was smart. He could tell at a glance that this person didn't have good intentions. He was also certain that his son was not the culprit. The lawyer knew Gang Beek wasn't the murderer because he had evidence of the real killer in his hand. As long as Hai Ryul's ex-husband could get Dolphin Kahio a suspended sentence, he would hand over this evidence. On the police side, the investigators of Nan Hee's case continued to be scolded by their superiors. He didn't want them to offend powerful people, so he told his subordinates to investigate the stuttering male student thoroughly. The reporter was very upset when she learned that the stuttering male student had been released. Despite having sufficient evidence, the police still didn't think that the male student was the real culprit. The iron pipe he was holding was found to have a lot of animal blood, but it wasn't the murder weapon used to kill Nan Hee. Hai Ryul on this side had investigated the stuttering male student's animal abuse, and it had been transferred. The phone was important evidence, but when checked without a warrant, it would lose its effectiveness as evidence. She kept calling her husband, and accidentally bumped into someone. Hai Ryul quickly got out of the car to check. It turned out to be Nan Hee's roommate. Fortunately, she was okay. Just then, the girl's phone rang. The call was from Junwoo. Upon seeing this, she immediately hung up. Afterward, she decided to reveal the truth about Nan Hee's death to Hai Ryul. The threatening letters to Junwoo were sent by the girl on Nan Hee's behalf. This was inadvertently witnessed by the stuttering male student. The two of them shared information with each other. He mentioned the argument between the professor and Nan Hee that night. The reason she wanted to talk to Hai Ryul was because she considered Gang Beek a friend. She didn't want him to be framed. The private photos of Nan Hee that were circulating online were also leaked by her. The man in the photos was Junwoo. Everything she did was to seek justice for her friend. But currently, only Nan Hee is being criticized by others, while Junwoo is still living well. This made her feel unwilling to accept it. These words left Hai Ryul utterly disappointed. So, Junwoo, fearing suspicion, had been covering for the stuttering male student. While his son was in danger, he was only thinking about himself. Faced with Hai Ryul's accusations, Junwoo could only apologize. That evening, the Han family held a meeting. The female lead's grandfather said that from now on, they would no longer be involved in this case and would hand it over to Professor Nad, since he was the only outsider in the family. Hai Ryul's mother told her father to be careful with reporters. Hai Ryul, on the other hand, requested a search warrant for Jusung Company as soon as possible to divert public opinion. Everyone also needed to protect Gang Beek so he wouldn't come into contact with the media. The stepmother wasn't qualified to participate in the family meeting. She only hoped her wedding day would take place before Gang Beek's so she could get a marriage certificate. Then, she would attend her grandson's wedding with the old man as the official great-grandmother. In reality, she just wanted a chance to divide the assets. Hai Ryul's parents went into the room and started arguing. The two of them kept bickering about who was more at fault. At this time, her mother inadvertently revealed information that Hai Ryul's father had a son out of wedlock. That person was the one who confessed his love to the director's daughter. Jun-woo brought his son to pay respects to the deceased. Afterward, the two fathers and son talked to each other. Kang-beek said he was ready to confess. Jun-woo didn't allow it because he knew his son wasn't the perpetrator. He said he killed Nan-hee himself, so he would go to the police station because his motive was clearer. Jun-woo also admitted to his son that he had dated Nan-hee, deceiving everyone in the house. Upon hearing this, Kang-beek immediately denied it because he knew the real killer was his mother. On the night of the incident, someone sent him photos of Nan-hee and Jun-woo in an intimate setting. He ignored his boyfriend's attempts to stop him and went to meet Nan-hee with many questions. Nan-hee admitted everything. She explained that she was doing everything to avenge her father. After embarking on this path, she had to fight to the end. Even if Kang-beek persuaded her to stop, she wouldn't agree. Kang-beek didn't want his family to be hurt, so he blurted out a curse at Nan-hee. At this moment, his mother appeared. He didn't understand why his mother was so calm when facing her husband's mistress. Remembering the fake marriage agreement between him and Nan-hee, Kang-beek felt very guilty towards his mother. Hai Ryul told her son to go home first. She would handle everything else herself. Since his mother was the last person to see Nan-hee, he was convinced she was the killer. After hearing everything, Jun-woo decided to go to the police station to confess, regardless of Kang-beek trying to stop him from behind. The male student who liked the director's daughter already knew about the relationship between his roommate and Kang-beek. The look between the two of them was truly different, so he had realized early on that they were in love. What he was most curious about was whether Kang-beek had gone looking for Nan-hee on the night of the incident. Kang-beek's boyfriend lied, saying they had been together all night. The male student knew immediately that his roommate was lying because Kang-beek's boyfriend had returned to the dorm that night, and Kang-beek had come home soaking wet. Seeing this, the great-grandfather called a family meeting. He believed that his great-grandson lacked understanding and was always causing the family worry. Kang-beek told everyone that his father, in order to protect him, had gone to the police station to confess. At this moment, his mother returned. Seeing that she wasn't at all surprised by the news of his father's confession, Kang-beek concluded that it was all his mother's plan. She wanted to let his father, someone not related to the family by blood, take the blame. Kang-beek's sister, upon hearing this, immediately criticized the family as inhumane for letting their father take responsibility alone. Hai Ryul's mother shifted the topic to Jusung. They needed to divert public opinion by arresting the vice president of this company. Kang-beek couldn't take it anymore. He revealed the truth that his father wasn't the murderer. The real culprit was someone in this family. He also said that he couldn't clearly explain his whereabouts that day because he was with his boyfriend. The great-grandfather, thinking his great-grandson had issues, demanded that he seek treatment. The conversation reached a dead end. On the police side, based on Jun-woo's confession, they knew that Nan-hee had died from strangulation, but he didn't reveal where the murder weapon was. However, given his status as a professor and his relationship with Nan-hee, Jun-woo currently had the strongest motive. Hai Ryul's ex-husband called and learned that Jun-woo had confessed for the sake of his son. If things continued like this, it would be even more difficult to resolve. He went to see the dean. Hearing that the dean wanted his daughter to marry into a family with a murderer, he immediately became enraged. Hai Ryul's ex-husband hurriedly knelt down and begged for help. He had come up with a solution that benefited everyone, and all he needed was the dean's seal. It would not only help suppress public opinion, but also successfully propel the dean into the political arena. Upon hearing this, the dean immediately changed his attitude. Hai Ryul went out with her mother and unexpectedly met her sister who came to visit. She continued to criticize her sister for always targeting companies related to her husband. In addition, Hai Ryol's sister blamed her mother for only caring about her sister and not giving her any attention. After that, she scattered photos of Junwoo and Nan-hee all over the house. She didn't care anymore and decided to release this information to the media. Gang-beek stepped forward and picked up the photos. At this moment, Hai Ryol looked at her son and finally compromised, deciding not to investigate her brother-in-law anymore. He went to the police station and confessed that he was the one who killed Nan-hee. The perpetrator had evidence, the handbag. Then, he recounted that on the day of the incident, he was drunk and used an iron bar to knock Nan-hee unconscious before dumping her body into the lake. All of this was prepared in advance by the male lawyer. The police publicly closed the case. Gang-beek saw the news and rushed into his mother's room, demanding that she stop everything. Hai Ryol was extremely confused by her son's unusual behavior. After thinking carefully, she remembered Gang-beek's strange actions recently. She hurriedly ran into her son's room but couldn't find him. After running to the rooftop, she discovered her son sitting near the railing. Hai Ryol hurriedly apologized, telling her son not to do anything foolish. The great-grandfather and everyone else appeared one by one. At this moment, he even cited God's law that people who commit suicide don't go to heaven but go to hell. Hai Ryol's mother quickly persuaded her father to be quiet, but Gang-beek no longer had any hope for this family. Under everyone's gaze, he resolutely jumped down. Finally, Gang-beek passed away. Hai Ryol was numb with grief at the sight of her son's body. Before he jumped, Gang-beek had said something to his mother, but the thunder had made it impossible for her to hear. After the funeral, she asked her mother again what he had said, but her mother wouldn't answer, wanting her to rest. Afterwards, her mother went to the prayer room. By chance, her stepmother was also there, and she abruptly mentioned that Gang-beek, having committed suicide, would go to hell. This drove Hai Ryol's mother into a rage. Not only did she expose her true nature, but she also destroyed everything in the room. The stepmother had no choice but to leave. When the housekeeper entered, he found Hai Ryol's mother sitting blankly in a corner. The housekeeper comforted her, saying that the chairman would eventually hand over the company to her. But the main character's mother knew that her father was an ambitious man, and she actually had nothing in her hands. It was his indifference that led to Gang-beek's death. She only hoped that her father would come to his senses quickly, otherwise, she would do it herself. In the aftermath of the case, the biggest beneficiary was Dal Go-rae Whale. He faked a herniated disc to get a suspended sentence. Hai Ryol's ex-husband wasn't happy when he saw the news. Later, the chief prosecutor came to invite him to a promotion celebration. But with his son just having passed away, he had no interest in such things. When the chief prosecutor mentioned Gang-beek, he immediately lost his temper and threw the glass in his hand. Meanwhile, Junwoo was packing his belongings in the office, preparing to resign. Nan-hee's roommate entered with a USB drive. Nan-hee had asked her to give it to Ju-yu. It contained many secrets that Nan-hee had painstakingly prepared. But Ju-yu refused to accept it, because he was the one who had brought the misfortune. Afterwards, the roommate insisted on giving it to him, because it was the last mission Nan-hee had given her. After telling Junwoo the password, the roommate left. After her son's death, Hai Ryol threw herself into work to avoid thinking about the sad things. But when there was no one around, she unconsciously looked at her son's picture, and then remembered the past. She really didn't understand why Gang-beek had acted so rashly. Then, she ran to the school and stood in front of where Nan-hee had died. At that moment, the scene from the night of the incident flashed in her mind. Indeed, after Gang-beek returned home, she had talked with Nan-hee. She admitted that she and Gang-beek were not in love. Gang-beek was the one who had suggested pretending to be married. His purpose was to escape an arranged marriage. Then, she also told her how Hai Ryol's father had hurt her father. The intimate photos between Junwoo and Nan-hee were not sent to Gang-beek by her either. This indicated that there was an even bigger conspiracy behind it all. Finally, she left. Being photographed by students brought Hai Ryul back to reality. Hai Ryul's grandfather wasn't at all saddened by the death of his grandson. He thought Gang Beek was too cowardly, which is why he ended up that way. Then, the lawyer working with Dal Go Ray Whale came to see the old man. Upon hearing the news, the old man opened the safe and took out a notebook. Just as he left, the stepmother picked up the phone and called someone, telling them to prepare the car. Tonight, she was going to make a big move. The lawyer told the old man that Nan Hee had evidence of Hai Ryul's father and several others engaging in illegal transactions. He didn't know if she had shared the file with anyone. The old man told him not to worry, because he knew his son-in-law wouldn't dare do anything. Then, the old man took out the notebook and read aloud the crimes that his son-in-law had committed. It turned out that he had prepared everything long ago. This made the lawyer afraid, and he could only do as he was told. After returning home, Jun-woo had an argument with his wife. He said Gang Beek thought his mother was a murderer, which is why he decided to do something so foolish. This made Hai Ryul extremely heartbroken. She couldn't hold back her tears and asserted that she was not the murderer, but Jun-woo didn't believe her. The lawyer supporting Dal Go Ray Whale received news that the inmate who committed the murder had committed suicide in prison. Turns out, someone else was at the crime scene that night. He was afraid his lies would be exposed. Plus, the simultaneous appearance of both the perpetrator and the male lawyer was likely captured by CCTV, so he asked the lawyer to help him take care of it. Afterward, he ran to Dolphin. Unexpectedly, Hai Ryul's father was also there. He warned Dolphin that someone had filmed Hai Ryul's father committing illegal acts. Dolphin was also involved that day. Upon hearing this, Dolphin rushed to attack Hai Ryul's father. However, he still refused to reveal the whereabouts of the video. On the day of Nan Hee's case, the male lawyer was the one who found her USB and phone. Afterward, he threw them into the river. Could he be the culprit? Hai Ryul went to the police station, saying that before she died, Nan Hee had hacked her computer. She also knew that Nan Hee's computer had been completely wiped clean, and the data couldn't be recovered. Currently, she needs those fragments of data to find the culprit because the real killer is still at large. That evening, the stepmother gave the old man 2 vitamin pills. To make him trust her, she took 2 pills herself first, then spat them out when the old man was about to sleep. That night, the old man fell into a stupor. Seeing this, the stepmother secretly used his fingerprints to open the safe, then took the documents inside and fled. Hai Ryul's mother saw this scene but did nothing. The stepmother successfully escaped. She went to see the person who helped her get revenge, none other than someone acquainted with Hai Ryul's grandfather. That person had someone burn all the data that the old man had meticulously recorded. Although the stepmother had gotten her revenge, she still felt a sense of loss. After all, revenge couldn't bring happiness. The next morning, the old man woke up and discovered that his young wife was missing, so he hurriedly went to ask his daughter. She said that she had run away with some jewelry. The old man realized that something was wrong, so he ran back to his room and opened the safe. All the secret information he had collected had disappeared. The female lead's father, upon hearing this news, went to see his father-in-law. He used the fact that his father-in-law had lost secret documents to threaten him into getting rid of Dolphin. Otherwise, he would reveal this matter, making it impossible for the old man to control others anymore. Hai Ryul returned to her hometown to find her husband. The two calmly talked to each other. She said she wasn't the killer. The real culprit was still on the run. Only now did she realize that the things she did in the name of protecting her son ultimately pushed him into the abyss. Now, she wants to find out the truth to atone for her lost child. After hearing his wife's words, Jun-woo gave her the USB that Nan Hee had kept. Finally, she had the decisive evidence to expose those manipulating behind the Christmas fund, including her father and brother-in-law. Afterward, she immediately contacted the police. Although she had evidence in hand, it wasn't enough to turn the situation around. She needed to conduct a comprehensive search of Jusung, and the police would also reinvestigate Nan Hee's case. After returning home, Hai Ryol prepared her luggage to leave. Although her grandfather had asked her to cover up the Christmas fund scandal because it brought shame to the family, Hai Ryol was determined to expose everything. Her mother also tried to dissuade her, telling her not to act rashly, but no one could stop her. After her daughter left, her mother went to see her father. Knowing that the old man knew about the matter but still covered everything up, Hai Ryol's mother criticized her father for being greedy. If it weren't for his stubbornness and high self-esteem, their family would have been happy. Gang Beek wouldn't have acted foolishly either. Upon hearing this, the old man wanted to hit his daughter. Unexpectedly, she dodged and pushed her father away, causing him to accidentally slip. When the video about the Christmas fund scandal was released, everyone involved was arrested one by one. Hai Ryol's assistant found a suspicious recording. Because Nan Hee's phone had software that automatically uploaded photos to the computer, the assistant found a photo she had taken of the male lawyer in the files. The killer in prison had to follow Dolphin's orders and end his own life. The rope was sent by Dolphin. He was just a scapegoat. To provide his wife and daughter with a better economic life, he had to accept this fate. Hai Ryol arrived at a crucial moment. Seeing her, the male lawyer immediately claimed to be the perpetrator's defense attorney in order to avoid arousing her suspicion. However, Hai Ryol knew everything. After hearing the female lead's threat, the male lawyer panicked and fled. However, the police were already waiting outside the prison and apprehended him. Hai Ryol persuaded the fall guy to confess everything in order to implicate both the male lawyer and Dolphin Kahio. But he didn't dare, fearing they would harm his family. Those who appeared in the video were arrested one by one. Jusung was completely exposed for being behind the fraudulent fund called Christmas. Hai Ryol held a press conference, declaring that she would be the one to put the criminals behind bars, as she had sufficient evidence in her possession. The trial commenced, and the female lead stood before the judge, declaring each person's crimes. The male lawyer was sentenced to 2 years in prison for manslaughter. He admitted to assaulting Nan Hee, but insisted that he wasn't the one who threw her into the lake. In court, he became disruptive, causing a commotion. Even though the case was closed, the police still had many doubts. After being struck, the victim took a while before being thrown into the lake. This made them suspect that someone else had also been present at the scene that day. In the end, Hai Ryol submitted her resignation. 1 year later, the old man suffered paralysis and memory loss due to the aftereffects of the fall. Hai Ryol's mother took her granddaughter abroad. The female lead's father and brother-in-law did not accept the verdict and continued to appeal. Jun-woo no longer worked as a professor. He dedicated himself to community activities. Hai Ryol later visited her son's grave, expressing her thoughts. She hoped that Gang Beek would no longer be bound by the tragedies of the past. But what no one expected was that the real culprit was still out there, living freely. The one who manipulated everything was Hai Ryol's father. He was the one who murdered Nan Hee. Initially, he sent intimate photos of Jun-woo and Nan Hee to Gang Beek to provoke him. Gang Beek and his mother then went to find Nan Hee, but no one was deranged enough to commit murder. Taking advantage of the situation, the male lawyer waited for Nan Hee to leave and then appeared to threaten her, forcing her not to reveal the evidence she had. But Nan Hee recorded that conversation. As she turned to leave, the male lawyer panicked, picked up an iron bar, and struck her hard. After that, he wiped the blood off the iron bar and threw it into the lake, grabbed the phone and bag, and fled the scene. The next person to appear was Hai Ryol's father. He ignored Nan Hee's cries for help and threw her straight into the lake. In the end, the male lawyer became the scapegoat. Although he told the truth in court, no one believed him due to his extensive criminal history. In prison, the fall guy approached the male lawyer and stabbed him in the stomach. He did so on Dolphin's orders. If he didn't comply, his family would suffer. The reason Dolphin ordered the murder was to clean up the mess for High Ryol's father, helping him get out of prison sooner. Fame and fortune continue to reign supreme. Evil will continue,